Hello and welcome to my tutorial. I'm Ninja Dave and we're going to be ghosting the prologue level of Thief 2014. When I talk about ghosting the level, I'm talking primarily about the playstyle reward at the end of the level. There are 3 available: Ghost, Opportunist, and Predator. My tutorials will be about the first kind, being a sneaky sneak, sneakily. I'm also going to be showing you where to find every stealable item, collectibles, consumables, documents, and other loot. Every time there's something that you can pick up or pickpocket off an NPC, you'll see me doing it on screen, and you'll also see a running tally appear in the lower right hand corner. These will come in 5 different colors: yellow for basic loot, red for collectibles, green for consumables like arrows and food, blue for documents, and orange for pickable pockets. Next to the sequential number of each loot item, you'll find a /38. There are 38 basic loot items in the prologue, so each time I pick something up, it's whatever number out of 38. In this first room, there are 12 lootable items. They're all pretty easy to spot if you open all the drawers in the cabinet, but later on things get a little bit more difficult, and I'll show you where the really sneaky items are. There's no reward for finding every piece of loot in the prologue other than the value of the items themselves. On later missions, you're told how many items there are to find, and you get the obsessive-compulsive achievement or trophy for finding all of the items on a single level, plus a cash reward on every level that you completely clear. Just the same, this tutorial will walk you through picking the level clean so that you can maximize your profit, but that's not really why I'm doing this. There are other tutorials out there that point out loot, and they're very thorough and educational. What those don't seem to focus on is ghosting. Getting through a level like a wisp of smoke in the night. Things like getting through this room without disturbing any of the birds. They're more about accomplishing all of the tasks in the mission and finding all the stuff. Not that finding stuff isn't important. We're going to be talking about that too. For example, behind this painting you're going to find the first collectible in the game. It's relatively easy to do. You just pull this switch right here and the painting slides up, and then you have to pick the lock on the safe. The game tutorials themselves are pretty good at showing you how to do these things. Just follow the prompts on the screen. Once you get the safe unlocked and open, you'll find inside the glittering plumage. You'll notice that the tally notation for collectibles has 2 lines. The first tells you how many collectibles you've found out of the total number that there are to find in the level. This is the first and last in the prologue. The second line tells you which loot collection the piece is from and how many of those you found and how many are left if you've been following along with my tutorials. Together we're going to squeeze every bit of shiny out of this game and pick up every gold piece available except for the rewards for Opportunist and Predator tasks. If you need help with those, there's loads of tutorials you can YouTube, but since my walkthroughs are about ghosting, let's talk a little bit more about what that is. I said at the beginning that I was talking about the playstyle reward, but that's not all that I mean by it. I'm talking about true ghosting. That means never alarming a guard, or getting seen, or killing anyone, or even taking anyone down if it can be avoided. Sometimes it can't be avoided, and I'll show you those times, but for the most part you want to leave no evidence that you've been there except for the absence of the things that you take with you. When you get a ghosting reward at the end of a chapter, the stat screen says that you tried to leave no trace of your presence, but that's not actually what you're getting points for. The game tracks whether or not you alert guards or dogs or birds, and how many takedowns you perform, and how many bodies you leave in your wake. But if you can knock somebody out or kill him before he notices you, that's still counted as undetected. We're going to be taking things a step further. No alerts, no kills, no takedowns where they can be avoided, and we're not even going to be blowing out candles if we can possibly get around it. When you open a door or search a drawer or cabinet, we're going to be closing those before we move on and leaving everything we possibly can exactly like it was when we found it. Pussy thieves can leave the line now. Here, there be ninjas.
Are you going to use any of those?
Like I said, there's no ghost reward for the prologue, and there's no reward in any chapter for role-playing it out being as stealthy as possible. But it's how I like to play, and it adds a layer of challenge even above what the game provides, no matter what difficulty you're playing on. So I thought the prologue was as good a place as any to try this out and to give a good description of what this video series is going to be about. When I did this video the first time, I was recording on the Xbox itself, which is just about impossible and I don't recommend it for anyone. But I've got a new system now, and I made some mistakes in the first attempt, so I went back to the beginning to do a take 2. But even with a better recording method, playing the game this way isn't easy. The game gives you all kinds of ways to make sneaking easier, putting out candles, water arrowing, torches, choke arrowing, dogs and birds, etc. Deciding not to use those definitely leads to a little bit of extra reloading, but I think it's also more rewarding. But even though I had to reload sometimes, what is here on screen, what you're seeing here, is a single complete playthrough. When I did have to go back, I re-recorded so that I'd know that at the end the statistics screen would match the video. There is no statistics screen on the prologue, but on later levels you'll be able to be confident that what you see me do is what is graded there, and if you followed along, you did in fact find every piece of loot, and the tallies for things like lockpicks and pickpockets and takedowns and kills are all accurate. Also, and most importantly, the stats for suspicions raised and times detected should stay accurate, and those we're going to be trying to keep at 0.
Look what I found.
Now, as we come into the voyeur's apartment here, this is a good time to talk about drawers. You're going to see that I open every drawer and cabinet that is openable, even though I know which ones have loot and which ones don't. Again, this is a role-playing thing. You don't have to do this, strictly speaking, but I do it as a part of that same philosophy of making the gameplay as realistic as the game mechanics allow. It's the same reason that I close everything that I open and try not to disturb anything. It's also the reason that I look through every keyhole when I can remember to do it, even though I know what's on the other side of the door. I feel like the character would do it, so I do it. There's obviously no reward for doing this, but I feel like if you're still watching this video, you're doing it because you're interested in ghosting the game, because you're looking for the most authentic playing experience you can get. To me, that means doing what I think Garrett would do. There are 208 documents in the game, and they come in 2 different types, newspapers and other documents. The tally notation is a bit different from the other types of loot. It gives you 2 lines like collectibles, and the first line will tell you whether it's a document or a newspaper and the current tally for that type. The second gives you the total tally for both types in the mission so far and the total tally out of the 208. So the Voyeur's Diary is the only document so far, the only document of any type in this chapter, and the first out of the 208. And with that, we are basically finished with introductions. For the rest of this video and the bulk of the rest of the series, I'm going to be pretty much just explaining what you're seeing on screen, telling you where to go and how to get there, so to speak, and of course, talking about why I chose the route that I did. Because at this point, we're pretty much at the end of the easy part. Starting with this next section, it's less and less about sneaking around the Thieves' Highway where everything's out in the open and there aren't any threats, and more about not getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar and, of course, finding the cookie jar in the first place. For example, as we go through this window and into the last room in the prologue without any guards, we're going to be looking for the first piece of loot that's really hidden. The way to find it is to come over at this wall and find that brick right there, which doesn't show up until you get very close, and you press it to open up this sliding wall. Inside you'll find 2 pieces of loot that are just about impossible to see. Make sure you close the wall back before you head over to the cabinet over here to search it and the drawers. Again, I open every drawer and the cabinet itself to find the piece of loot inside. Close the door before you go, and as you get towards the stairs, be very careful because there is a bird cage right there at the bottom of the stairs, and the bird will alert if you do anything too choppy or try to swoop past or something.
So how much did you steal?
It's not how much you steal. It's what you steal.
And how you steal it.
Now, I've talked a bit about opening drawers and closing doors because I think that's what Garrett would do. But another reason for doing that, and also for making sure that what you see on screen is what gets reflected in the stats screen, is because one of the stats that the game keeps track of is playing time on missions. I'm not sure this game is really built for speed challenges because there's too much of it that you have to spend waiting for guards to turn around, but if I did want to time myself, I'd still want to do it, making sure that I opened every drawer and closed every door that I went through and only moved as fast as I could without any detections. Okay, so it's time to get our feet wet, literally, as it turns out. We're about to see what the game is really all about. We've seen guards before, but they were few and far between, and, let's face it, not terribly bright. From here, pretty much until the end of the mission, every step that we take will be one where a false step could get us caught. So you're going to want to pay very close attention to your light gem down there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that you stay in the shadows as much as you can, and if you can't stay in the shadows, like right here, you'll want to make sure that you swoop across the light as quickly as possible. Also, stay behind the guards when you can. Line of sight is important. The game keeps track of where they're looking, and they'll see you more easily if they're facing you than if they're not. Be careful when you pickpocket. Don't get too close. Guards will alert if you touch them. Keep crouched down. It's not just being seen that gets you caught. Crouching is quieter. And speaking of keeping quiet, here is the first water trap. You want to be very careful as you're going through here and move as slowly as you can. If you go too fast, it's an automatic detection and the game will just stop because the only objective here is to stay undetected. Grab these 2 coins from back in the shadows if you can, and then don't forget to come all the way back to this statue to get this cup. It's not the easiest to spot. Then swoop across another patch of light and grab these water arrows and use one of them to take out that torch. As I said, normally I don't want to be taking out torches and leaving traces that I was there, but especially in the prologue, the game sometimes won't advance if you don't do what it wants you to do. But even in the later levels, sometimes you just have to. Like in a second, you're going to do your first guard takedown, and not too long after that, you're going to have to blow out a candle because if you don't, it is essentially impossible to get all of the loot. That will happen in later chapters too. Sometimes in the game, it just looks like it's set up so that there are certain things that you just have to do. But on the whole, where these things can be avoided, they should be. This little cutscene here, where the characters are going to be talking about whether or not guards should be killed, is sort of an inspiration for that playstyle that I've been trying to describe for this whole video. I think that Garrett may not be the most three-dimensional character in all of gaming, but I do think that they establish him here as being the sort of person who doesn't want to kill guards and doesn't want to hurt them if he can help it. He wants to rely on stealth and skill rather than brute strength, and like I said, my whole approach here is to try to do what I think Garrett would do.
You haven't changed, have you?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means I don't kill without thought or good reason, and I don't get paid for it.
So basically it's okay when you do it, but not me. I see. I get it.
This isn't a fighting game, in other words. There are lots of games out there for bludgeoning and stabbing, but this one is, at least for me, it's about sneaking and stealthing your way through. But there are different schools of thought on everything, as Erin has just adroitly demonstrated with her angsty dialogue there, which is why there are different playstyle rewards for snuffing out candles and shooting people in the face. My take on it is that a master thief shouldn't have to do those things. So far, the locks in the game have been relatively easy. They do get harder. In fact, they get harder very quickly in the next chapter. And one thing to look for as you're doing it is the fake. Sometimes if you move the pins too fast, you'll get a little flash like it's centered when it's not, and if you try to set it too fast, you'll miss that pin. Here you have to throw this bottle. Of course, normally I would not do that because it's an automatic suspicions raise, as you can see above his head there. And as you can see, I just went ahead and grabbed another bottle as I went by to make sure that I always have one in my inventory just in case I do come to a situation where I have to do it.
I'm fooling myself.
Also, it's a good idea to wait right here for a moment. In fact, it turns out to be a long moment on the master level before you go for this chess piece, because he ends up looking right through that gate there right as you come around the corner for a good while. And then you'll want to spend a lot of time here because until he stops alerting, until that alert above his head goes away completely, there's no time that he won't see you crossing through that light patch. If you had another water arrow, you could put out that torch, which you would have if you were playing on a lesser difficulty. But on Master, you don't have one anyway, and since I wouldn't put out the torches either way, it's best just to go ahead and wait here until he's finished, which is on this pass. I think no, maybe not. Maybe he's got another one. At any rate, eventually that alert will go away. There it is. And you'll be able to sneak across and get these 2 coins over here in the shadow. As soon as the alert is gone, even if you hear him thinking about turning around, he won't do it again. And you can see I wasn't 100% sure, so I checked to make sure he was looking the other direction, and he is definitely not going to notice you at this point. Once you come up on the ledge, the easiest place to get off is back here at the back in the shadows.
If you keep pacing up and down,
then just go ahead and pickpocket him, and when you're done, come around here and grab these arrows off the ledge. Now you may want to make a save before you try this next bit, but either way, look over at that guard and wait until he starts walking away from you, and pretty much as soon as he starts moving, you can swoop across this light here, make a quick turn, swoop to this crate, grab that ashtray, and swoop back into the shadows. The other guard will sound like he may be about to hear you, but he won't notice you if you move quickly. Then watch the walking guard again, and as soon as he starts moving away, you swoop again, and you come over here, and you have to put out this light. The reason for that is the standing guard, the one that's not moving, is looking at this chest pretty much the entire time. So if that light is on, he will see you. But once you've got the coins, you can use this cabinet on this side to make another save so that you don't have to ever try it again. I didn't do it this time, but I did on many other playthroughs because you can't make a manual save in the prologue, and this is just tricky enough to be very frustrating if you have to keep reloading it from the last checkpoint, which is just after that long cutscene by the bench. Either way, wait until he turns around again, come and grab the coin purse off of him when he's standing still, and then back out of the light and wait until he starts moving. Even though the other guard is looking your direction, as long as you stay out of the light circle, you can make it to this ladder with no problem and climb up it and head off towards the end of the chapter. Now, on blowing out that candle back there, I say there's no way into that chest without doing it, but of course, what I mean by that is I haven't found a way. Like I said, as far as I know, nobody else on YouTube is doing this type of video, so I don't know if anybody's figured out a way through there. If you figure out how to do it with the candle still burning, please drop a comment.
I'm worried you're gonna get.
I'd love to know how it's done.
I can handle myself, okay? I can move faster, I can climb faster, I can...
You can kill faster and make mistakes faster, I get it. You're not in control.
That is essentially the
That's
end.
why I'm better.
At the end of this cutscene, which is coming up in just a second, there's just one
Let's just
last
get the
little
job
task.
done.
It's the last of the pickpockets. You just grab the claw off of her belt, and as soon as you do so, you lose control of the character for the rest of the level. The rest of this is just a cutscene, and I am going to go ahead and let it play out. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. Of course, there's really no reason to. You can watch it in your own game. But either way, I do want to just take this opportunity to say thank you for watching. I enjoyed making the video, and I hope that it was helpful to you. And if it was, if you learned anything, please drop a comment about that. I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, let me just say I'm Ninja Dave. Thanks for watching, and happy thieving.
Rogues are always a bad sign.
Brothers Cornelius, Aldous, present the keys.
This Baron Northcrest.
Brothers of the Awakened, we are gathered here to usher this city into a new age. One of progress and industrial enlightenment. Let us begin the channeling of the primal. Sembla Strakakan. Skema Makana.
Come on, let's go down there. This will be fun.
No. We're done here. Job's over.
What? Are you joking?
Something's not right. It's too dangerous. And you're not ready yet.
You know, I'm not a kid anymore. I can do this. I'm going down there with or without you.
Not without this, you're not.
Garrett, I'm slipping! Ah! Garrett, give me the claw!